Good morning. So, my name is Jörg Proença, and I'm going to talk to you about our outreach strategy. So, in order for us to reach all the society and all our relevant stakeholders, we need a sound outreach and stakeholder engagement strategy. That is what I'm going to talk to you today. So, about last year. So last year we started to establish the building block. But we already had some very good events. So we had one in Brussels where we presented the building blocks, such as the event that we are having right now. Then we have some general events in Spain, Slovenia, and Germany, where we presented our solutions, our specifications, and our software. And also we had some specific events, for example, in Slovenia, where we focus on geopreservation and geodata preservation. However, besides these 6 events that are focused on e-archiving, we also had others. We aim to spread the word in all over the world. We in several conferences and important venues. Despite being the first year where we wanted to establish the building block, we already had some successful uptakes. So we have 16 organizations all over Europe, including one of the directorates of the European Commission. And as you can see, we have several uptakes. One thing to be careful is that e-archiving, as we have been explaining, is not just a simple solution. It's an ecosystem of interlinked specifications and software and standards. So, to give you just an insight, there we have around 15 organizations, and we have the uptake or the outputs that they are using from e-archiving. As you can see, these are at various phases of the onboarding path that I'm going to explain further on. But as we can see, some organizations use one component or one specification, others use several of the specifications. We are also developing an e-archiving capability maturity model, which purpose we can use this maturity model for benchmarking and internal auditing, to measure progress, meaning to assess, meaning to see in what phase are you in your path to implement e-archiving. Also to identify strengths and weaknesses in your implementation, and then identify gaps between where you want to be and where you are, and then plan the efforts and prioritize the efforts to reach your goal. Also, this in the end can be a measure of trust, because we are based on best practice and standards in the archival domain, which, when implemented in a sound manner, can ensure that data is accessible in the long term and guarantees trust in the organization. This maturity model will not only assess the e-archiving related processes, but it will also include the assessment of relevant higher management and infrastructure processes and procedures. This is, for example, because it's relevant to guarantee trust. For example, if you don't have a business plan or financial capacity, how can you ensure that in 20 years' time you guarantee that data will be accessible? So, as I explained, we are using several best practices. For example, we are using OAIS. We are using also the producer archive interface methodology abstract standard. We are using records management standards. We are using the audit and certification trustworthy digital repositories that we already had in the E-ARK information governance maturity model. But that maturity model was focused to assess the pilots of the E-ARK project. So now we are then putting it up to use to assess every organization that is concerned with the long-term accessibility of data. Also, we are using some of our reference architecture because we also want it to be a tool to assess how you implement that architecture. that we are developing as part of the software activity. We also have an onboarding and stakeholders follow-up service that we are establishing, which purpose is to facilitate the onboarding process of stakeholders that are interested in your building block. So this will support users to reach or to implement e-archiving solution through several venues such as conferences and events, workshops, demos, webinars, articles, news items, communication campaigns. It will consist of mainly 5 steps that go from discovering the building block to its operation. So in the first is where you discover the building block, so we onboard the stakeholders when they are prospecting. Then the next step is evaluating, when we go from identify the specific business needs and translate this into requirements. Then further on we help design the e-archiving infrastructure in the organization, and then we select among our solutions and our software and specifications which are the most appropriate for the organization. Then we go on to the start, where we support the deployment of the archiving solution, and we also support the integration of the archiving. Further on we go to use, where we support the go-live archiving solution in the organization. And then we have the final step, that is an iterative step, meaning that is always running. That when we measure and promote, meaning that we measure periodically, or as much as the organization wants, the maturity of their implementation, where there are changes, to measure the path to progress and to higher maturity of your implementation, using the maturity models that we are developing. And we also support the stakeholders then presenting their solutions and implementations in relevant international venues. So the main stakeholders that we identified, we used a technique tool, mainly a canvas that is called the business, that it calls the value proposition canvas. So we identified 3 main stakeholder groups, which are the data creators, or also called in the CF page as operation managers, the repository managers or owners, and the technology or service providers that are solution providers. So what if this canvas helps us to identify in the right part which are the jobs that a particular stakeholder has to do, which are the pains that they suffer while doing that job, and which are the gains, the things that they would benefit from having while doing the job. Then in the left part we have what the e-archiving building block offers. They offer some gains, some pain relievers, and they have a set of services that is in light blue. So data creators, so this first example is for data creators. So data creators, we identify them as public or private institutions which have a requirement that information is subject to be accessible in the long term. So the main jobs are mainly to prepare and to prepare the data to be ingested, and then doing that is to do some format migration. The main pains is that this data many times is in disparate formats and so on, and for that we offer a set of services. Then we have repository managers or owners, which are our entities that are responsible for the governance of a digital repository. This can be national, regional archives, ministerial archives, scientific archives, and so on. So mainly what they do is they receive these submission packages from the data creators, and what they must do is ingest it and guarantee that they are accessible in the long term, and also provide access to that data. Finally, we also have the technology and service providers. These are entities, public or private, that that develop technology and services for digital repositories. And examples of this can be software providers, digitization services providers, technology integrators, and so on. And what the main job that they want to, that concerns e-archiving, is that they want to provide e-archiving services and technology to their customers. So for that, they also find some complexity of digital preservation requirements, some conflicting standards, and we provide some pain relievers for them through the service that are in light blue. So what is the benefit of these onboarding and stakeholders follow-up services? So it provides a targeted and on-demand engagement activities. It facilitates the adoption process, and it also reduces the learning curve because you are in contact with us. These are the main benefits. So if you want to join us, please join us on LinkedIn. We have a group called E-ARK project group. You can join us. You can also join us follow us on Twitter, also at E-ARK project. Please join us. And if you want to really contact us, you can contact us through the CF page. If you go to the eArchiving webpage and you go to the section services, you'll find a section for the service desk where you have a button when you can contact us directly for all your queries that you might have related to eArchiving. And that's mainly our onboarding strategy.